If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, we have Kenney joining the program as he returns to action August 17th, UFC 241 in Anaheim, California. He takes on Manny Bermudez. So much to love about this fight. How are you, Casey?
I'm doing great, man. I love the fight as well. What's not to like about it?
I know, and that's the perfect question here. And I know a lot of other people are excited for this matchup as well. It's pretty rare that at this point in your runs, like where you're at in your career, where he's at in his career, the UFC would match you guys up so quickly. So what was your reaction when Bermudez was the guy presented to you and that this fight would be on a huge card like UFC 241?
After the Borg fight, they kind of told me that August would be when I came back, which was perfect time frame for me. I fought a couple times there. A couple months off wouldn't hurt anybody. August was great. So obviously, I saw 241 August 17th, and I just kept, asking about getting on that card. And honestly, it didn't matter who they gave me for that card. I was going to accept it. And, it just happened to be Manny Bermudez, who's 14-0, and that's an even better task because I love taking people's zeros.
You've been tearing it up recently, and you got a much-deserved break. I mean, not too long compared to a lot of other fighters in the game, but a well-deserved break after fighting twice in 8 days. And a couple of years back, you had a couple of opportunities on the Contender Series, and you were 1-1, and then in the second fight, you lost a super close split decision. You went on, you didn't let that deter you at all. 5 fights since then. 5 fights, 2 LFA titles in 2 different weight classes, your UFC debut victory, which we'll get into in a moment. But what do you think was the biggest lesson, your biggest takeaway from your experience on the Contender Series?
When I didn't get the contracts on the Contender Series, I think I may still be the only guy ever to fight twice and never get a contract on the Contender Series. But, I thought it was, it was a big deal at the time, but, I didn't let it get to me too much, but it was like, man, this should have been my time to make my run, to, get going. And, now here we are 5 fights later. I think I could kick, that guy that fought on the Contender Series, his ass, all up and down the place. So I think it all, all worked out for a reason. I'm up at a bigger weight class, a whole new weight class, a weight class I feel really great at. I feel really strong at. And then, I've grown as a fighter, I've grown as a person, and now's my time to make my run. And, maybe the Contender Series wasn't the time.
You said it didn't really bum you out too much, but did you carry around not getting a contract as a little bit of an extra chip on your shoulder? Like a lot of fighters carry those chips around, use them as fuel. Was that one for you at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. Every time I fought again, it was like, I'm going to show you guys why, what you missed out on, really. Like you should have picked me type of thing. But like I said, everything happens for a reason, and I definitely, had a little bit of a grudge there for a little while. Wasn't much I could do with, the loss on there, the decision. I've still never owned that loss. Those ones on my record. I consider myself 14-0, man. So that's why this makes this fight even better. 14-0 versus 14-0.
Personally speaking, as someone who watches the sport and covers the sport, I'm glad that you're fighting at 35 as opposed to 25, because any excuse to not have to cut extra weight is totally okay in my book watching you guys. Right. But, you being 135, you feel better. You feel great at that weight class. You already have a win. You have a second fight coming up at bantamweight. Is it safe to say your flyweight career is over, or is the resurgence of the division, so to speak, would that kind of sway you to going back down there if the opportunity presented itself?
Maybe if the opportunity presents itself, I know I can make it, but honestly, I'm loving, bantamweight. I'm already getting bigger, I'm walking around 7-8 pounds heavier than I normally am in fight camp right now. So, which is, right on schedule, right on point, with what I need to be. But it would take either a lot of money or a good opponent to get me back down at flyweight, that's for sure.
So we talked about November, you capture the LFA interim flyweight title. In March, you win the bantamweight title. And then 8 days later, you're fighting in the UFC. Did you have any time to smell the roses at all after you capture that second title, which, you know, obviously timing-wise, it happened to work out perfectly that you were able to get that win in a little over 90 seconds.
Right. You know, I kind of went on with, you know, after winning the second title with the normal celebration stuff, eating good food, having a couple drinks, that type of thing. So I definitely wasn't expecting to call Monday morning. You know, I was going to enjoy like that Saturday, Sunday and get right back to it because I knew the call would be coming. And I did go train on Monday morning before the call came. So, you know, I was already kind of like expecting to get a call very soon, but I didn't expect it to be, you know, that soon. Had a little time to process it, but by the time I was trying to process it, I was on to the next endeavor. You know, I was processing getting, you know, fight week of the UFC as I was still trying to process the, you know, the highlight reel knockout.
You get Ray Borg in your UFC debut, a guy who's fought for a world title in the fighting city of Philadelphia, of all places, and you go out there in a very tough fight and you get the unanimous decision win. Absolutely huge for you. What was that first UFC fight week? What was that first UFC fight like for you 8 days after you won the LFA 135-pound title?
Man, you know, it just felt like home, really, you know what I mean? Like, you know, the stuff with the Contender Series and all that helped me with the fight week. It was a lot of the same people, a lot of the same schedule type of thing. You know, obviously a little bit different with the UFC, but you know, so all my experience leading up to it really kind of helped me settle into fight week. You know, it wasn't like I got met pretty much all the UFC staff, you know, at some point during the Contender Series. So I felt right at home, you know, a place that I knew I should have been. And, you know, walking out, I was all smiles. It was, you know, I was just trying to take it all in and enjoy it all. And the fight itself, you know, was pretty much what I expected. I knew it was going to be a grinder if I didn't put him away quick. And, you know, the cardio held up on 5 days' notice. And, you know, because even the LFA one was pretty short notice. You know, I was training, I was ready, but to say I had a fight camp for either of those is definitely not true.
Well, now with the fight camp, you get Manny Bermudez on August 17th. As you mentioned, 14-0. He's a New England guy. He's 3-0 in the UFC with all submission victories. Have you been impressed with what Manny's been able to do so far in his UFC run?
You know, I'm impressed with his submission skills. I think as an overall mixed martial artist, I think he's, for this fight, he's in over his head. You know, I think... you know, he's not a bad little boxer. He's not bad as a mixed martial artist, and he's, you know, a really good submission guy. But you know, we're at the highest level in, you know, mixed martial arts, and not only at the highest level, but it's a time where, you know, the fighters are some of the most well-rounded fighters to, you know, ever walk the earth. And I feel like I'm one of those, and you know, that's basically what I'm looking to do August 17th is, you know, find those holes, and it doesn't matter where it's at, and then, you know, put them away.
When you look at the matchup and the styles you both have, what you bring to the table, the attributes, all those things, what will you bring into that octagon August 17th that no matter what Manny does in the gym to prepare for this fight, he's just not going to have an answer for it?
One, you know, I feel like I'm going to run him right over. I'm going to take him into deep waters and I'm going to drown him. You know, that's if, you know, it happens to go that way. I feel like his gas tank is not going to be there, you know, not the way mine is. You know, I've proved my gas tank a couple times now, and it's been a little while since he's seen a second round, and he didn't look so hot when he did see a second round in his debut. So we'll see how the deep waters treat him, but you know, also, like I said, I think I'm just a more complete mixed martial artist. I think my striking is, you know, leaps and bounds above his, and I feel like he's going to be like Borg, you know. I think it was about 30 seconds in, you could tell he got real uncomfortable and just rushed in and tried to grab me, and I kind of foresee the same thing happening with Manny. You know, he may want to try to stand there for a second, but once you feel the speed, you feel the power, you know, you feel the accuracy, you're going to start diving at legs.
I just got to say something because I've noticed it in interviews that I've seen, and I'm noticing right now that you're a very happy guy. Like, you smile a lot. You're very positive. I mean, you're confident, but, you know, you're just a very happy guy. Where does that positivity, that, you know, that kind of everlasting smile, where does that all come from?
Man, you know, I'm truly doing what I love. You know, I've been competing since I've been 6 years old. I think I won my first national title in judo at like 9 or 10. And, you know, it was around that time I decided I wanted to be, you know, an Olympian in judo, which, one of the best in the world. So I feel like I've been chasing being one of the best in the world at something, similar since I've been little, and the goals never really changed. And now I can, the UFC's produced, a platform that you can produce a living doing that as well. And, I'm just living life. And, I've learned a lot along the way. Martial arts has, helped me out, and it's kind of molded that like positive attitude, happy person that I am. I try to present that all the times. Of course, like any normal human being, you can set me off and have my days, but for the most part, I'm a happy, positive guy.
Where does a win over a guy like Manny Bermudez put you in this bantamweight equation? Like, does it have enough weight to start talking top 15 type matchups?
I mean, I believe so. Like I said, I'm down to fight anybody. I'm looking for a long career here in the UFC. I'm in no rush to get to the top, but if that ride's going that way, I'm gonna catch on. So I believe, why not? Why not a top 15? Urijah Faber got back in the mix. Why not him? If he wants a title shot, I think he needs to knock off a couple more contenders. So. I'll sign up for that one as well. Totally out of respect, love Urijah Faber, but it would be a dream fight for me.
As a guy who's been in the sport for a little while now, you're in the UFC, to see what he did against a guy like Ricky Simón, did that inspire you? Did that fire you up at all?
Yeah, Ricky Simón's a tough dude, and honestly, I thought he had Urijah kind of worried there for a second. The look on his face was like, after he got hit, was like, oh shit, I'm 40, what am I doing in here? And then he threw that right hand, which happened to connect, and, props to him. That was an amazing finish. He's a pioneer of the sport, pioneer of the little guys, really. And, I was just really a fight fan for that. Didn't really have, much to say about it, but as soon as he started calling out Cejudo, I'm thinking, well, you may need one more, but, you're 40, so they're probably not going to give you a top 5 guy. I'll sign up for that.
So you got to wear the fight fan hat for a few minutes, and then after all that chatter stopped, you just kind of took the hat off and threw it to the floor and said,
"Yeah,
dude."
It was cool to be like, hey, I can actually, maybe I'm in the same league as Urijah Faber now. Let's so that could really happen.
How do you see this all playing out in Anaheim? You versus Manny Bermudez. How do you see yourself getting your hand raised?
And I'm going to put him away somehow, some way, whether it's the first, second, last 5 seconds of the fight. I think I'm going to break this dude. I'm going to run him over at some point, and, I'm going to drown him.
If you could somehow, because you've had just a lot happen to you over the last couple of years in terms of your fight career, especially, since November. But this last year has been pretty hectic for you. You just keep winning titles, and you make it to the UFC, and you fight Ray Borg and get a win, and now you're fighting on this big card in August. If you could somehow put it into words as you get ready for your second UFC fight, how would you describe this last year of your life as an MMA fighter?
All the hard work's starting to pay off. I've always been a guy that's just, constantly grinding, constantly working, showing up to the gym every day, twice a day. And I've always lived by that motto that, the work will eventually pay off. And, it's starting to, and took a little bit longer than I expected, but everything that I've envisioned, everything that I thought was going to happen is starting to happen. So, man, it's been a wild ride, but I'm looking to make it even crazier.
Casey Kenney joining us as he gets ready to face Manny Bermudez 2 weeks from this Saturday at UFC 241 in Anaheim, California. Great to have you here, Casey. Before we let you go, let the folks know where they can follow along on this journey with you via social media. Any shout-outs, anything else you want to get off your chest, the floor is yours.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for your time as well. Always shout out the people making it happen. Chris Carriasso of Rise Combat Sports, John Crouch at the MMA Lab, Jason House and Iridium Sports Agency. Definitely not in this game alone. You can follow me at CKMMA 135 on Twitter and Instagram, and then just Casey Kenney on Facebook.
Looking forward to this fight, Casey. Appreciate the time and all the best to you heading into August 17th.
Hey, thanks, man. Have a good one.